Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 133 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. So I've been inundated by a number of messages from a lot of you guys out there asking me to talk about the confirmed casting for the new Power Rangers movie. And I've wanted to go ahead and talk about it for a while, but I had this stance I wanted to wait till all five of the main cast members, were cast. Because talking about one on one or one at a time as they come along, I just didn't think it would be too terribly interesting. And I wanted to be able to, say, hey, these are the five. They're going to be playing these roles. These are the roles that we know. How do they stack up based on each of the characters? I thought that would make a great video. Of course, fill a good runtime because I just didn't see the point in talking about, each individual one as it came out. And at this point, we still haven't got casting for our Yellow Ranger. But today's kind of been a game changer, if you believe the information that is out there. In the last 10 hours, we've had some new information come out about the next Power Rangers movie that's honestly rather confusing when you kind of sit and think about it. But when you actually kind of dig a little bit deeper, you're like, okay, I should have seen this coming. I didn't realize this was something that was going to happen, or maybe I should have. It's all rather confusing, and several sources such as Screen Rant and Collider are reporting on this. Now, whether this is official or not is kind of up in the air. We have not heard any official information from Saban Brands on this or Lionsgate. So I want to preface this by take this with a grain of salt that all this might be false. It might not be true, and things may be different come tomorrow or even the next couple of hours. Nevertheless, I just think this is too good to not talk about with you guys. Because it's a lot of interesting things that we have coming up, and again, let's talk about it. Let's see where this takes us, because again, just a lot of interesting things that are coming out. First of all, apparently the film has an official title, because everybody thought it was just going to be Power Rangers, which seems like a simple enough title. I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with that. It's not bad in my mind. They kind of dropped the Mighty Morphin because, let's be honest, guys, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was something of its time, because they originally wanted to call it Power Rangers, but because of the success of Ninja Turtles and stuff, they're like, it's got to be something something Power Rangers, and that's when they come up with Mighty Morphin. But now, 20 some years later, we can streamline it, just call it Power Rangers. But apparently, that's not good enough. Reports are that the name of the film is going to be Saban's Power Rangers. Yes, that's supposedly going to go ahead and be the title. And then I thought to myself, why is it going to be Saban's Power Rangers? Now, technically, if you look at all the logos, all the way back to Mighty Morphin and so forth, excluding the Disney era, of course, they do say Saban's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Saban's Power Rangers Zeo, Saban's Power Rangers Dino Charge. All that's up there in the corner, but nobody ever says, what show are you watching? I'm watching Saban's Power Rangers Turbo. No, you're not saying that. You're just saying Power Rangers Turbo. I don't think anybody's going to get into semantics whether the Saban should be actually in the title and whether that's the appropriate title or not. But apparently, according to what Collider and Screen Rant are trying to say, is like, yes, it is going to be Saban's Power Rangers. And what's kind of interesting about that is I think I know why it's being called that, is that, Saban, he's a pretty good businessman. But the thing is, he really wants you to know that it's his product. I mean, like Donald Trump wants you to know that it's Trump Tower. That's why he named it after himself. Although he didn't go as far as calls them Trump's New Jersey Generals, but that's neither here nor there. But Saban really wants you to know that this is his Power Rangers. And also, according to reports, after the script has been finished, Saban went in and did a little bit of rewriting in there. And that tells me that maybe he's taking ownership of this. Maybe he thinks it's going to be so good that he wants his name attached to it more than it is. I don't know. It's kind of like, watching a movie and saying Bob Kane's Batman or something like that, or Bill Finger's Batman, depending on the lawsuit or however you believe it, or any of those things. It's like, I can't think of the last time the creator went and had a movie and said, had their name in the title. I mean, of course, you'll see like in advertisements, like a film by Quentin Tarantino or a Quentin Tarantino film, but I can't think of a single film that actually has the original creator. It has their name there because again, is it George Lucas's Star Wars or now is it J.J. Abrams' Star Wars? It's not that. It's just a very odd thing to go ahead and do, and I wonder if this is some sort of vanity project for Saban that maybe he's trying to get people to take the business more seriously or try to get the name out there a little bit more. But honestly, I think it's going to confuse people if this is actually the name. If it's advertised as Saban's Power Rangers, it's going to confuse a lot of people who don't know anything about Power Rangers because they're going to ask who's Saban because they're going to assume he's a character in the film. It's just kind of one of those things. Like you have a film called Superman, you assume Superman's going to be in that film. You don't have it where you get somebody else's name in the title and he doesn't show up. So again, that's the name of the film. It's called Saban's Power Rangers. Whether or not that's going to stick or not, we'll see. I think Power Rangers is a good title for the film, though, and I really think it should just be that. Now, also to that with Saban, again, it says that he's rewriting parts of the script. Apparently, the writers of Thor had already finished and he had gone in and made some rewrites. Now, the thing is, again, he's a businessman, and I actually looked it up before getting on here. I checked IMDb, I checked Ranger Wiki, I checked Wikipedia. I cannot find any episodes where Saban actually wrote them. His wife wrote some episodes, and I'm sure he was involved with the process of script writing and come up with creative ideas back in the early days. But what exactly is his extent to actually writing Power Ranger episodes? Because that's what's kind of confusing me is like, why is it that we have a businessman who created the show, had the vision for it, yes, but has no experience writing any episode, or at least not to the point where he has his name on the credits. So I don't know why this move is happening. Again, if it is indeed happening. And honestly, if you were going to get two writers who've done some great scripts for, again, Thor and X-Men First Class, don't you think you might want to get a rewriter who is a writer? I mean, why not call him Amit Bhamick? I mean, or just about any writer. Why is Saban getting into this? And I just wonder if this is kind of a bad sign of creative control that should not be happening. Maybe he'll get in there and change some things in script that's like, yeah, this is what we want. This is a lot better than what they were writing. Or if the movie becomes a mess, we can point to, hey, Saban got his fingers in the pot, and, well, this is what happened. So, I don't know what to really think about that. I'm more hesitant about than anything, and that is something to be worried about when people who are not writers get involved with the writing process or go in and start changing the script. I mean, at this point, if the script is finished, the only people that should be rewriting it would be an actual writer, or two, the director. But again, I don't know what Dean Israelite's background is on this and how much of the previous film he worked on that he may have changed a couple of things into the script. Okay, something else that has been revealed is we have a budget for the film. Now, the budget of this film is $35 million. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but I actually did a little bit of research on some other films, other contemporary superhero films and their budgets, and I just want to kind of go over this in comparison with you guys. So, looking at the last 10 years or so, here are some superhero films and here are what their budgets are. Batman Begins, $150 million. Dark Knight, $185 million. Dark Knight Rises, $230 million. Iron Man, $140 million. Incredible Hulk, $150 million. Iron Man 2, $200 million. Thor, $150 million. Captain America, First Avenger, $140 million. Iron Man 3, $200 million. Thor 2, $170 million. Winter Soldier, $170 million. Guardians of the Galaxy, $196 million. Ant-Man, $130 million. Avengers, $220 million. Age of Ultron, $280 million. Man of Steel, $225 million. Now, yes, those are all Marvel Cinematic Universe and DC films. But these are the most popular superhero films of the last decade. Yeah, you got the Spider-Man movies in there and a couple of others here and there. I think Ghost Rider was popular for somebody and all that. But here's the point I'm trying to go ahead and raise. These are the most successful superhero films of the last decade. And what do they all have in common? They all have a big budget. I mean, the smallest budget is Ant-Man, 130 million. That movie's done pretty well, but it has exploded in China. That's the cheapest budget, and of course, the biggest budget here was the 280 million for Age of Ultron, which is an Avengers movie, and you got all the cast together and so forth. So that's one thing. But again, the most popular superhero movies of the last 10 years, which happen to be Marvel and DC, range from 130 million to 280 million dollars in budget. The film that you're going to use to reboot the Power Ranger franchise is $35 million dollars. Now, some people are attributing this to the fact that they're not hiring big name actors, so of course they don't demand higher salaries. I get that, but the five main Rangers are going to be no names. That seems to be what you're going for. But why aren't you getting some A-listers on the side? I mean, look at Captain America, the first Avenger, for example here. Chris Evans, at the time, I would say was not that big of a name because he was in Fantastic Four, didn't do so well, and he was the Human Torch, and everybody's like, why'd you get him again? Why'd you get an A-list actor? So forth and the way. But to compensate for, I think what people felt was a short-sightedness on Chris Evans, and of course we all been proven wrong about Chris Evans at this point. But what people like, well, you got Tommy Lee Jones, he's definitely an A-lister. You got Hugo Weaving as the bad guy, he's definitely an A-lister. You got what's his name, Toby Jones, he's in there, he's definitely like a B-lister. And they got a good supporting cast of great actors in that film. And again, they had a much higher budget. But what this is telling me right here is that they're not going to get any A-listers in this film, any B-listers. I mean, you know, if Patrick Stewart was cast as Zordon, that would be amazing. I did a whole video just about, Patrick Stewart as Zordon, and I believe I may have said that before in a previous video. Or, if you got somebody like Kelly Hu to play Rita Repulsa or Scorpina, and we'll talk about Scorpina here in a minute. I mean, if you got like an A-list actor or actress to be one of the supporting characters or the bad guy and all that, that would be awesome. And we've seen a lot of films where you'll have an A-lister as the bad guy in those films. Typically, your bad guy is not so much of a no-name. I mean, you got Iron Man. I mean, you got Ben Kingsley in Iron Man 3. You got Mickey Rourke in Iron Man 2. Again, you get people that people actually know. So that's the first thing I see here is they're not going to be hiring any type of A-listers for any supporting role. So not only are the Rangers themselves no-name actors, but the supporting actors are no-names as well. And again, that's bothersome to me because I think, and I could be wrong on this, but just the way I see it is that you need to have some name to help headline your movie. You need to put some sort of credibility into that film. Okay, so let's just take a random film for example. Kung Fu Panda. Okay, there's a lot of A-listers in that film, but you were able to build that movie as Jack Black in Kung Fu Panda. Yeah, you got Dustin Hoffman, you got David Cross was in there, Jackie Chan, you got all those actors in there, but you're able to headline it with a particular actor. So even if nobody cared about Dustin Hoffman and all that, you did have an A-list actor in Jack Black to market that movie with. Even when you get to the third movie that's coming out, you got, or no. Here's a better example: Godzilla. Now, of course, you can sell the movie Godzilla based on the name alone, but for people who may not be into Godzilla, what name brought him into the theater? Bryan Cranston, by the way, was also on Power Rangers twice. So my question is, with $35 million budget, who are you going to get to headline this movie? Because I think we're past the days where you can just have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie and have the actors from the show in it, and that's it. I mean, Paul Freeman was great in the role of Ivan Ooze, but they didn't build that movie as with Paul Freeman as Ivan Ooze because everybody's like, who's Paul Freeman? And frankly, I think people still like this. I mean, the only thing significant he did before that was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it was he done recently. Not much, but you don't have a headliner for this film where somebody's going to help bring people into this. I mean, even Iron Man, they knew they had to get an A-list actor to play Iron Man because that movie was such a gamble, and of course that movie had a $140 million budget. And I would venture to say that this Power Ranger movie is more of a gamble for the general public to get interested in the franchise again, because where Iron Man got people interested in Iron Man and interested in Robert Downey Jr. again, what about this movie supposed to get the general Joe Six Pack, popcorn eater, whatever, into the theater to watch a Power Rangers movie? That's something that is bothering me. Okay, casting no names as the five main Rangers, I get that, but you got to have someone else in there. And again, you have a budget of $35 million. I mean, what are you going to do with $35 million? I'm sure it can stretch a long way, but when you compare it to its contemporaries with DC and Marvel productions, I don't know what they're going to do, again, actor wise, location wise, or even CG wise. I mean, is $35 million going to be able to get you suitable Zords? And I'm assuming Zords are going to be CG. I mean, I doubt they're going to be anything less than that. But you're going to get good locations. You're filming in Canada, which tells me that they're trying to save money because it's cheaper to film in Canada. But all the X-Men films shot in Canada, so I mean, there's that too. But I just wonder, with the 35 million budget, how limited are we going to be with special effects? How limited are we going to be with locations? How limited are we going to be with actors? Now, if you have a perfect story, you can get around all those things. And again, we have two great writers who've done good work in the past for those films. But the films they did write for had a budget of at least $150 million. So, again, it just kind of worries me if this number is accurate. If $35 million is what it is, then I'm a little concerned. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's $135 million. Maybe they got a bigger budget than Ant-Man. I just want to know why they said, okay, this has been the budget for all these very successful superhero movies, $35 million for Power Rangers. And that makes me wonder, are they not confident in what the Power Rangers may be able to do at the theater? That's kind of scary. That's actually the scariest thing that I've seen in this news. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay. So next is the casting. Now here's the interesting thing about the casting. Okay, so we assumed when the reboot came out that we would get the original five Power Rangers back to the Mighty Morphin era, see the Dinozords again, see Zordon, and all that. And there were some early reports that Scorpino would come back as the villain to fight the Rangers, and we would have seeing in the past where Zordon was the original Red Ranger fighting Rita back in 65 million years ago, prehistoric time, technically 10,000 years ago because that's what it is in the show, but of course 10,000 years is long after dinosaurs. The point is, we've been hearing that Scorpion was going to be involved, Rita was going to go ahead and be involved, Zordon was involved, so we assumed this was going to be some sort of Mighty Morphin project. But when we started getting official casting information from Saban, we got Naomi Scott as the Pink Ranger. Not Naomi Scott as Kimberly the Pink Ranger. That's something to bear in mind here. Because when, and I hope I pronounce his name, Ludi Lin was cast as the Black Ranger, people did start kind of losing their minds because you made an Asian guy the Black Ranger and made a black guy the Blue Ranger. I think people were kind of freaking out and like, no, Billy can't be this. I mean, all the things I had predicted from the last video that would happen with some people. But it never said as Zach the Black Ranger or Billy the Blue Ranger. It just said as the Black Ranger, as the Blue Ranger. So it was rather curious that was coming out. Now, another thing that we got was that it would actually see what my understanding was from a couple of articles I had read before is that it would take place after the events of Dino Charge and would involve time travel of some kind. That's what I was reading in a couple of places, and my initial thought was, well, that's a good idea. I mean, that is technically what they did for the Star Trek kind of stuff, where I imagined would be is once Dino Charge was over, that Scorpina, which was the rumor villain, would come back, fight the Dino Charge Rangers, try to go back in time, and maybe change history to help Rita out. And maybe that's where that scene of Rita in the past fighting Zordon as the Red Ranger would come in. She would come back, help, and change history for the betterment of Rita and so forth. That was kind of my thought, and I thought, well, that would be a pretty good idea because much like what they had with Spock in the in the Star Trek reboot, is that Spock failed. These were the consequences. Yada yada yada. But admittedly, that would be retreading old territory that we've already seen in a different franchise. But now, what it sounds like is that it takes place in the same continuity as the Power Rangers series after the events of Dino Charge. And that we are not getting the original Jason, Zach, Billy, Trini, Kimberly, but these are 5 new Rangers. So, according to the Collider and Screen Rant report, our Red Ranger's named Callium Oliver, Pink Ranger Payara Patel, Blue Ranger is Brian Olson, Black Ranger Oscar Fernandez, and Yellow Ranger Tanana Jones. And I know I pronounced those right. I am so bad with names. This is why I can't learn Japanese. Anyway, those are the rumor names that we have. So clearly, we're not getting our original Power Rangers. So what it sounds like now is it's a continuation of the Power Rangers series after Dino Charge before whether they do a Tokuger, Go Buster, or Ning Ninja adaptation. This is going to be the next generation. These are the next Power Rangers. And it is quite obvious it's not going to be Go Buster or Tokuger or Ning Ninja by the fact that they have a Black Ranger in there. Because they're obviously not adapting any of the Sentai into the film. Now, this leads me to believe, based on the fact that everybody thought it was a reboot, and we have information regarding other characters in there. Apparently, there was a Alpha 5 casting too, somebody for the voice of Alpha 5. Based on that, what it sounds like to me is that this is going to be handing off to the next generation of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That instead of going back and starting all over again, that the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are going to be passed on to a new generation of Rangers, meaning that Jason is going to give his coin to Callium, that Billy is going to give his coin to Brian, that Zach's going to give his coin to Oscar, and so forth and so forth. And, this is a lot like what I kind of wanted from the Go Ranger and the 40th anniversary of Sentai. If you recall from that video, my thought was have a new generation of Go Ranger in the modern day, updated, and you have like one of the old Rangers stay as a mentor, and they give their powers, like, get new updated costumes and such. That seems to be where they're going with Power Rangers here, is that maybe what's happening is that, not Zordon, but, somebody is coming back, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers need to return for whatever the reason is, and the Rangers have to pass on their power coins to be the next generation of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Mark II, if you will. And I think that's a great idea because, again, I was pushing for it in Sentai. It's something that I think probably should happen in Power Rangers as well. Now, this is both problematic and good for a number of reasons. Now, if we assume this is all true, that it takes place after Dino Charge and this is the next event in the timeline, this is really going to get muddled with whatever they're going to do next in the form of the TV show. Because I think it's a foregone conclusion that once Dino Supercharge or Super Dino Charge, whatever, is over, that they are going to go ahead and continue the Power Rangers series, whether it be Go Buster, Nin Ninja, or Tokuger. Whatever it's going to be, we're going to get another season based on the suits. Or it might be even the 40th Sentai, the new Animal Sentai. We have a number of different options we can have on what's going to be the next TV show. But if we have the live action film, then you worry about 2 teams of Rangers that are active at the same time. Because if this was a reboot, we went back to the beginning, then of course we can fix any continuity errors and make things flow a little bit better. But now we have to, I won't even say contrive, but we have to invent a reason why this team of Mighty Morphin Mark II and whatever the next adaptation is going to be don't work together. That you're going to have 2 teams of Rangers that are actively going. Because you have to admit, this isn't going to be like like the Avengers, where they team up, part ways, and then by circumstance they come back in the next movie. Now, this is going to be where they are a team of Rangers because the core is Power Rangers are a team, and they're going to remain active against whatever threat it is, and supposedly they're not going to be involved in whatever's going on with the other threat that the next adaptation is going to deal with. Although some good cross promotion would be helpful, and they are cross promoting because apparently, again, with this is that the Dino Charge cast is supposed to appear into the movie. Now, whether that's the core 5 or the eventual 10 Rangers we're going to get, or maybe the last episode ties into the film in some way, none of that is for sure at all. None of it's confirmed at all or anything. That's just kind of what's been going around. But it's going to be problematic to do that. But second of all, it's kind of like, why go back to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers if it's not going to be the original Rangers? Now, the cynical part of me is going to be like, well, this will allow. Here's my theory based on my cynicism: is that this allows them to go back to the Mighty Morphin era, bank off the nostalgia, but update it so they can justify selling all the Mighty Morphin legacy items, all the Mighty Morphin t-shirts at Hot Topic and stuff like that, saying, yeah, that was a show 20 years ago, but here they are again. Which, I guess is what they do at some reboots, is like justification to sell old things as new merchandise in a way. Because I mean, how many of the legendary Megazords have we had that are the Mighty Morphin? I mean, we had the original, the Black and Gold, and the re-release, and then of course, every now and then we get Retro Fire Megazords. It all goes back to the Mighty Morphin Megazord, and this would be a justification to come out with another Megazord, to come out with more Mighty Morphin memorabilia. Plus, this movie would also get rid of the original cast in. Okay, here's what I'm saying. So, you know, David Yost, that's the name I'm looking for. David Yost has made clear he's not coming back to Power Rangers unless substantial things change. People apologize to him, things like that. He's had crappy experience. And Thuy Trang again tragically passed away. So you really can't do a Mighty Morphin reunion without tinkering with it a little bit and trying to appease everybody. I mean, I talked about this in a previous video. But by doing the Mighty Morphin recastings, you can have that new generation and not have to involve the original Rangers. You don't have to involve David Yost in this process at all. You don't have to pay money to fly Austin St. John, anywhere, or have to wrangle in negotiations to try and get Amy Jo Johnson to actually do stuff. That this is their way of going back to Mighty Morphin, capitalizing on that success, but not having to involve the original actors in it whatsoever. Because of, I mean, frankly, it's a very split thing. You're never going to get all 5 of them, or excuse me, the remaining 4 of them together ever again. And again, the whole thing with Trini is like, well, what are you going to do with her? And again, I spent a whole video on that. So my cynicism says they want to do this so that they don't have to bother with, having to go back to the original actors, and of course not rebooting it. Also says, hey, we don't have to go into the tricky thing of, like, I can tell they. It seems to me they didn't want to deal with the racism or supposed racism involved. That if they did a reboot, that Zach would have to be black. Because just imagine for a second here, if they did the reboot and they went back and they changed history, that somehow they changed history in Power Rangers, and Zach would no longer be the Black Ranger, he would be the Blue Ranger. Okay, I can maybe go ahead and see that, but with casting, the implication would be is that Zach would no longer be black. Much in the same way that Khan Noonien Singh turned from an Indian to a British guy in Star Trek Into Darkness. Those things just don't match up together. It seems like they want to avoid the racism and again do something different. So that's my cynical take on this thing. And again, I'm just speculating. This is just off the top of my head based on my knowledge of Power Rangers and kind of what they've done into the past. Because I mean, if they did this as a straight up reboot and they brought black guy in to be Zach the Black Ranger, oh my God, Fox News would have a field day. And we would never hear the end of it. Now, of course, that would get butts in the theater to go ahead and see the film. But again, there is such a thing as negative publicity. And I do want to bring up one point that I did not mention in my previous video. Bob Chipman brought this up in one of his videos. It's like one of the issues you also have about recasting Zack is you're taking a predominantly known black superhero and not making him black anymore. It's kind of, and maybe this is a little too extreme, it's making like the Black Panther, and he's got a movie coming up, making him Chinese. In a way, that would kind of go against the character and so forth. But the Black Panther is more rooted in, his African roots than say Zack is. But the point is, you're eliminating a African American superhero from the collective consciousness. And with this, if the reboot went that way, and you didn't want to put a black guy in the black costume, well, then you have a problem. And of course, taking an Asian, predominant Asian hero in America out of the equation as well. So let's see here. Okay, so I keep getting all over the place with this because, it's just hard to process all this information. I really don't know what to think about all of it. I think here's the bottom line that I have. Um, they really need to give it a bigger budget. I don't think Saban meddling in the script is a good idea. And I'm really curious on where they're going to go with this in the main Power Rangers continuity and timeline. Because again, there are three timelines. There's the movie timeline, there's the current continuity, and then there's the RPM universe. So it's obviously not going to take place in RPM because that's post-apocalyptic, and I don't think we're going to deal with any of that. And it's certainly going to take in the continuity of the original movie universe, so this is definitely going to be part of the TV show. And I want to see where that goes, because here's another problematic thing is that, okay, if you did reboot and went back to 1993, you do still have some baggage with things that have been retconned, such as the Samurai Rangers. They were retconned. Keeper and the Air Gems, that's been retconned. All this kind of stuff that's been happening in the past, and, we didn't know anything about it. That this is here, that is there, and so forth. So you still have to work with things with continuity. In a way, I wonder what they're going to do with the continuity in this film. Is that how much of it are they going to ignore and how much of it are they going to embrace? Much in the way that Ninja Storm came out and wanted to distance itself from previous Power Rangers seasons, say Power Rangers are in comic books and all that. I wonder if we're going to get something akin to that in this film where people don't think Power Rangers exist, despite the fact that they've, been around for over 20 years and so forth, or if they're going to try to embrace that and really tie in a lot of the continuity in history into the series. So it's going to be kind of a good juggling act as far as where that's going to go. Here's another thing too. I've been hearing 50 million people talk about this, and I don't want to hear it because I don't know if this is where they're going or not, but Callium Oliver. First of all, it's a stupid name, Callium Oliver. But that's Tommy's last name. And somebody speculated, oh, what if he's Tommy's son and all that? And I'm like, no. First of all, he's not Tommy's son. The timeline does not work like that. Maybe if this was the 30th anniversary or a little bit further into the future, I might buy that, but not at this point. And I'm not really interested in entertaining if this person is related to Tommy or not. Now, if Jason David Frank was involved in the film and it was Tommy that's bringing back the original Rangers and he's the new mentor, okay, I'm all aboard about that, but I don't want to see a father-son dynamic with Tommy and all that. I just don't think it works for the character at this point with everything that he's gone through. If you want to get another character with a father-son relationship, I'm sure there are other characters you can go ahead and get, but I also don't think we're that far into the franchise where you can start having this generational thing where it's the children are starting to do this kind of stuff. And even the Oscar Fernandez, he could be related to Trent, or he could be related to Trent in the same way Z and Danny were related, which is none. That's something, again, I'm just really kind of concerned that people are going off on tangent and wonder if Tommy's in the movie. I mean, I would love to see Jason Frank in there if he is the mentor. If the plot of the movie is Tommy's back at it again, he's become a mentor, given the original Mind Morphin Power Rangers, building new Zords, new weapons and stuff. Okay, I can see that. That way you can, definitely bring in a good link to the past. But if this guy is just Tommy's son, he's trying to live up to his father as the greatest ranger ever. And, I'm sorry, that's just not something I'm really interested in seeing. Doesn't make for good drama, possibly, but that's just not something I'm really interested in seeing here. And I suppose I probably should go ahead and talk about the actors, but here's the thing. There isn't much to talk about. I really thought when I would look at these guys and look at their IMDb pages that something would pop out and say, hey, let's talk about these guys. This is important to talk about. Naomi Scott, she was in The Martian. She was singing. And my initial thought was if she was going to be cast as Kimberly and you got somebody who's got a singing background, well, Kimberly was really into singing in addition to gymnastics back in the original series. So, okay, I got it. You got somebody who's done some singing to sing as Kimberly. Okay, that makes good sense. But again, it doesn't seem likely it is Kimberly at this point. The guy they got to play our Red Ranger, Darcy Montgomery, I think Darcy, whatever, Mr. Montgomery to play Jason. He's had like 3 credits in IMDb, and all of them were in shorts as supporting characters or additional people. He has absolutely no history whatsoever. And same thing with R.J. Seiler and Luden Lin, which I imagine Mr. Lin was cast because of Coda's popularity and because Coda is freaking awesome, the actor that plays him. So I imagine they want another Asian guy as the blue, well, not as the Blue Ranger, but as the Black Ranger in here. Because I mean, he's physically set for the role. He's obviously going to be. He hasn't done much. I think he's done slightly more than some of the others. So is RJ. Um, but I just don't know. I mean, if you were to again, if you were telling me like Patrick Stewart, even if you told me freaking Will Wheaton was going to be in this movie, I would have something to go ahead and say. The problem with them casting unknowns is I have nothing to say about them other than I'm just kind of worried that they're banking on the fact that these unknowns will become popular or be good enough. I mean, I just hope that when they did this casting, wherever it was, likely in Los Angeles, since they're going to be filming in Canada, I don't think they're going to be filming in New Zealand or anything, that if they actually got the best actors possible, or went to the casting, I mean, I doubt that somebody went in there being an A-list actor for power, auditioning for Power Rangers. They like, no, your salary's too much. We can't cast you. You're awesome, but we're gonna get this guy who's second tier. I don't know. It's just, and again, is this a union thing? Is this non-union? That's something. If anybody knows, are these actors union or non-union? Are they part of the Screen Actors Guild or something? Let me know because that would be information to know, I think, because again, with unions and all that crazy stuff Saban's had, that's why we can't have nice things because of crap like that. And this might be another example of it. So, all right, final thoughts on this, guys, is that I'm disappointed with some of the things that I've seen as far as again the budget, the casting, and all that. The story, I'm a little hesitant because again, Saban may have gotten his fingers in there, and I'm just kind of wondering what they're going to do with the current continuity going forward. Because believe it or not, I do find it a little bit more problematic than a reboot, just because they're going to be concurrent with the Power Rangers franchise. It's kind of like go back to another super like Agents of Shield. It's like you're gonna have the cinematic universe, which is on movies and television, but you're gonna have so many restrictions on the TV show and or the movies that you can't do certain things. Like again, it's unlikely that like Robert Downey Jr. is gonna show up in Agents of Shield because of restrictions that they have on the show, and the characters from the show aren't going to show up in the movies because of restrictions and crazy stuff like that. And that's where I'm kind of worried it's going to go into. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm wrong at this, and this is going to be the next Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Power Rangers Cinematic Universe, where, again, the show and the movies complement each other, and the next movie will have a budget of 130, 140, 150 million, and people will be like, this is awesome. But again, for the Power Ranger fan, I mean, I will. If I'm not in Japan at that point, I will be there for a midnight premiere. I will camp out 2 days early to see this movie. I will go watch it 10 times just so I can pay the money to help the budget so it doesn't bomb and they know that people want to go ahead and see this movie. But for the common moviegoer, I don't know what they're going to go ahead and do, and I'm just kind of interested to see what happens. Okay, so those are all my thoughts. Maybe I'll come back and update and revisit a few of these things, but I'm very curious on what everybody else thinks on these rumors, supposedly confirmed and so forth. So, guys, Let me know what you think. Leave your comments below. And when there is more substantial news coming out about the film, when we actually do get 100% confirmation, I will go in and either rant, discuss, or praise whatever the confirmed information is. But until then, I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.